And to our first conversation now, we see the Supreme Court on Friday ordered the old 200, 500, and 1,000 Naira notes should remain in circulation until December 31st, 2023, with the Apex Court also nullifying the federal government's Naira redesign policy, declaring it as an affront to the 1999 Constitution. Well, that's where we're starting the conversation today. Joining us now is Femi Onokore, MD, News and On-Case Solutions Limited. Join us via Zoom. Great to have you on the show. Good morning. I think you might have to unmute yourself, Femi. Let's try it again. Hello, Femi. Okay, I don't seem to hear you, Femi. Can you try and unmute? Okay, so it looks like I'm not able to hear Femi, but obviously we did get that ruling by the Supreme Court last week. We're supposed to know what that means. Should we be excited, at this point, or should we still have some kind of cautious optimism? But we're still all waiting to hear from the central bank to see what next, for Nigerians. Can they still get the old notes from the banks at this time, or do we get others that still have most of those old notes to recirculate, into the economy at this point? It is a very serious issue at this point. Everyone's looking for cash. At this point, I've not had cash for the longest time, and obviously you need cash for some of these petty purchases and all of that. But with this new ruling, it all depends on what the Central Bank of Nigeria does next, and if the federal government actually reacts to this. And hopefully, it is quite a tricky condition right now, because we know that once the old notes go into the banks, they shouldn't come out. So what next? What do we expect? We'll be waiting to hear all of that. Let's see if we can get Femi now. All right, looks like Femi is still not available. We'll still try and get Femi again. But at the end of the day, we see that a lot of money has been mopped up from outside the banking system at this time. And we know that getting those funds back into the economy, it's not going to be the easiest. And obviously, with the drive for financial inclusion and reducing. Okay, I think I hear Femi. Is that Femi I hear there?
Can you hear me?
Okay, Femi, I hear you now. I hear you now. So I think we can try it again, Femi. So, Femi, obviously, some people are excited, hearing the Supreme Court ruling last week. But there's still a lot of confusion. People want to know, can they still, get cash at this point, even if it's old or new? People just want to transact easily. What do you think? How do you think this is going to work, going forward? Do we have to, do we let the banks recirculate old notes, or what's your thinking about this?
So the ruling is quite interesting, because it's something that was not envisaged by the CBN, and it creates a lot of precedents and confusion. The good thing about the ruling is that it affords us as a country to have a more mature democracy. Basically, right, the Supreme Court had to come in to wade into a monetary policy matter, as it infringed on rights. In terms of availability of cash, old and new notes, that's where the challenge is. The Supreme Court can rule on rights and the legal structure. However, who makes the cash available? The CBN had previously alleged or tried to intimate that the old notes have been destroyed. So even though these old notes and new notes are now in circulation, are allowed in circulation and legal tender to December, where do you get it from? And also we realize that there is the challenge of the availability of the new notes. So the ruling is pacifying, but it's really not doing so much, because where does the cash come from now? Is it now not counterproductive with regards to the the vote buying insinuations that motivated the implementation of the policy? It becomes very counterproductive and affects the way we look at, transactions being done. And payment channels are already strained as it is. So it becomes quite a conundrum. I don't know how the CBN is going to be able to meet up with the volume expectation, track the old notes in circulation, and just basically try to rejig the economy. It becomes quite a challenge for everybody.
Because
I don't know what,
Yeah, because with all this time, spent, discussing this and, with the presidential and national assembly elections, all of that, happened. And, you would expect that, new notes should be printed, while all of that was going on. But we're still seeing scarcity at this point. So, for you, what would you say are the options available at this time?
Well, the CBN has put us all in this position, and we need to take a serious look at a couple of things. Number one, either we like it or not, trust in the financial sector, in the banking sector, has been eroded. A lot of people put money in, they can't withdraw their money, they don't have access to their cash, assets when due. There's a lot of strain on the payment system sector, and there are a lot of failed transactions, there are a lot of job losses from POS operators and all that. So what we would advise the CBN to do at this point is concentrate on incentivization of the cashless policy. Basically, the whole position that we are in, the hole that we are in right now, we need to dig ourselves out of it. The reality is we do not have enough new note printed, according to all information that we've been given. We don't have sufficient new notes, in circulation. So I don't see how they can, in the short term, quickly buff it up. So in the short term, it's going to be rough, right? And the old notes, right? NFIU and the rest of law enforcement agencies and monitoring agencies will be watching out for whoever comes up with large volumes of news. So of old notes, which means that there's already a challenge in that particular space. All right. The only thing we can do now is to have a more robust payment channel, right, system, right, and have incentivization of users, right, in terms of, you want to do your transaction, charges are less, you charge people less, you encourage, what's it called, customer service, and resolution of issues to at least pour through this period until the CBN is able to push out sufficient old notes and, print new banknotes.
And looking at the, banking infrastructure now for payments, I would expect there have been some kind of expansion, going on while, everyone is still feeling the pinch of getting cash. But has there been any improvement, with the banking channels?
Interestingly, what has improved has been the volume of mobile transaction, that people have been doing. So a lot of people have had no choice, no other option than to do more transfers, and such. Because POS transactions have actually dropped a lot because POS were seen as alternative channels to ATMs. With attendant economic fallouts like, job losses and having to buy Naira with, Naira, which is, quite a confusing state. Our payment system infrastructure is actually quite good enough. It's just a question of scalability. But the timeline for this scalability, right, and the way it was set up and put in place means that we put too much strain in a short while. They will scale up to use, right, over time in a short period of time. However, as of now, the strain is too much, and then there will be a lot of disputes and a lot of failed transactions, which is why an incentivization model is what would be advised, right, that the CBN should try to carry on, and a more robust customer engagement, customer service, position, so that we can move on, right, from the judgment of the Supreme Court and away from the silly position that we were in with the politicization of a monetary policy.
All right, Femi, so much ado about currency design at this point. But how do you see, international investors, watching all of this unfold at this time? What do you think their reaction to all of this is?
Well, I would imagine some of the people we've spoken with, they have concerns, right? And then they see opportunities at the same time. Primary concern is that in the payment system sector, the influence of executive powers in determining monetary policy implementation and application becomes a concern. So any investor that's bringing his money in is thinking, okay, so what policy is going to change the dynamics of all the financial models that we have built in terms of deployment of services, in terms of setup and all. I mean, it really affects your bottom line. So it's a major concern that the CBN and the executive has to really try to match people and try to build that trust all over again, because it's quite a concern. Now, the other side is that it also creates opportunities. So what has become apparent is that our current infrastructure is a bit lacking, and there's still a lot of room for expansion, which means that investors are also looking at coming in, with different fintech solutions, different alternative channels, creating models of payments that can reach out to the lower level, the local level, right? Include financial inclusion methodologies that cuts off different channels of bottlenecks. Basically the opportunities are there, right? But I believe that the CBN and the executive need to put in place some sort of reassuring position for people, for investors who want to bring in their money, because the opportunities are there, and this whole policy redesign and implementation has shown that, yes, the market is quite deep, and we can actually grow a bit more.
All right, so Femi, we're here now. Before I let you go, we got the ruling on Friday. What do you see happening next?
Well, the first thing that we are expecting this period is for the CBN to comply, and their compliance should come by way of a written, submission, an exposure draft to say that banks should take new notes. Remember that the banks are under the jurisdiction of the CBN, and that authorization, even though there's a court ruling, the authorization has to go in. And then the terms of collection and acceptance and distribution also need to be clearly defined. I also believe that the CBN is working on a rejigging of the cashless policy, as especially the cash withdrawal limit that has been set, as the Supreme Court's ruling showed, infringement on rights. The physical cash remains legal tender, so there has to be a balance in how it is going to play out. So we're expecting a position from the CBN in the course of the week that addresses it and clears it. If the CBN should fail to come up with a position on this matter, then we have a position of executive rascality, as some might call it, which means that we would be undermining the influence of the Supreme Court in terms of the deciding applicable laws, as it affects the citizens of the country. So I expect the CBN to comply and to come up with guidelines, going forward, to guide the banks and to also give the citizens a bit more comfort in terms of alternative channels, incentivization models, and all that, so that we can move forward.
All right, we'll definitely be watching out for the response from the central bank. Everyone itching to know what's going to happen next at this point. Are we going to get cash in our hands very soon? Thank you so much, Femi Onokore, MD, News and Anke Solutions Limited. It was great having your perspective today.
It's been a pleasure, Ladi.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone watching out to see what happens next, because at the end of the day, every Nigerian there will they have access to their cash? That's the question, at this point, and hopefully we can get a smooth process there for people to be able to get hold of cash and make transactions, because at the end of the day, we're seeing businesses suffer, without this cash. We should be able to have a choice, make a choice. If you want to make transfers, or if you want to be cashless, or if you want to trade with cash, we should have that option.